Hello, I'm Marina Johnson, and this is TABLEWORK, a TAPS podcast series where we interview the artists and theater makers behind our productions on what it takes to get their productions from the page to the stage. This episode features TAPS Lecturer Matt Chapman, who is directing the TAPS Winter Mainstage play. Join us as we learn more about the upcoming production of The Arsonists. Matt, I'm so excited to talk to you today, and I can't wait to dig into the play, The Arsonists. But let's start with the first question of why The Arsonists? What drew you to this play?
It's fun. For me, it's fun. The thing is that I was introduced to this play in when I was in high school. I was in rural Nebraska in a small town high school in the early 90s, and I had this amazing man who did all of the arts in our small high school, and he had our theater, our like one act competition after school group. He had us doing Ionesco and like commedia stuff, um,
Wow.
and this play, and we did really well with it, and it stuck in my mind because it had a big impact on my perception of what theater could be like and what it could be for. And it actually, I feel like working with him, his name was Ted Blenderman, and I feel like working with him pushed me into this like physical perspective on the theater, which then launched my entire career in that direction. So that's my how I learned about this play. It's a funny sort of origin story for me in that way. And then, a few years ago, I found a copy of it in my house, like 2 years ago or something. I found a copy of it in my house. I was like, oh, great. Um, love to see this again. And as I was looking at it, I was like, oh my God, it's time for that play. It's time right now for that play.
Yeah.
It was a weird, it didn't feel like a choice. It felt like it just sort of presented itself to me. I was like, do this play now.
Oh, that's amazing. And I mean, what a joy to discover it in high school. I don't know a really interesting high school choice, and what a influential teacher you had to sort of expose you to these different worlds.
Yeah. Yeah, truly.
So, The Arsonists, as I know it, is a darkly comic parable about complacency, moral blindness, and the rise of extremism. So, how do you approach directing a play that is politically pointed while still keeping it theoretically alive and not didactic?
I love this question. So for me, like that question is always the alive theatricality of a thing, the dramatic action of a thing, the unfolding events on stage of a play are what makes it viable. And as political theater artists, I'll speak for myself, how about that? as a political theater artist, like I always, we're doing it through the theater. So that's the focus. That's where things live. Like this play, for example, like the politics of this play are really clear because the play works really well. And so to make the politics of this play functional for an audience, you have to make the play work. So that's where the energy goes. Like that, we don't have to, the degree of, how didactic is the play is going to be contained in the play
Mhm.
if you present the play.
Yeah.
So we don't have to do any, I could see where, actually harkening back to like in this high school production, I think there were like, maybe there were Nazi armbands on the arsonists, or something really pointed in that way, didactic, right? Or but that was appropriate for the time and place,
Right.
for people to understand what the play was talking about. And it's not so necessary now. No one has to look very far to find an analogy. We from a design perspective, we're keeping the play kind of in this mid-century Europe vibe, which I think is that helps the audience understand the location of the play's origin, which will pop the politics of the piece as per our current era become evident at that time.
That makes a lot of sense. Can we continue down the design path a little bit? I would be curious to know if there are particular design choices or things that you're working with design collaborators on that you feel are either visual elements that you want to tell us about, or anything in particular that you're just excited about, whether it's costume or scenic design or lighting.
One thing that I've really enjoyed in this process, and I think it's going to come together really beautifully, is the way that the various design elements are all we're all working in concert together towards this escalatory explosion of normalcy.
Mm,
And so we see that in the costumes, we see it in the set, it will be in the lights, the sound, absolutely. So it's fun. That's a fun support of the elevation of the piece. We go from this. there's a cozy home, kind of middle class comfort that has. This is so hard for me. Radio interview is like because I'm so gestural. I'm trying to like describe it with my hands without.
Yes, you're really painting the picture for me. Hopefully others will be able to to follow along too.
Yeah, totally. Aren't I expressive and aren't I really making myself clear? Imagine if you can a gesture that shows. um, so we go from this world of contained normalcy into a very exploded reality um, of not normalness and danger.
Mhm.
Thematically, that's the story of the play, and or rather, it's a small world of normalcy, believed normalcy, that is surrounded by not normalcy on the outside, which comes in and explodes outward through the play. And the set does that. Yeah, the costumes do that. The lighting. And that's a fun. I don't want to give away some of the ways that they do that because it's a fun experience, but
No, but it sounds, I mean, really intriguing because I feel when you describe it, oh, I think I understand what that means, but now I'm even more curious to see it and to see what the design does in these ways. I know it's still early in the process, relatively speaking, right? You've only been in rehearsal for a few weeks,
yeah,
but are there any discoveries or surprises that you can share from the rehearsal room so far, whether it's about the text, because you're revisiting this text now after, I mean, your first experience was a while ago. But right, is there something surprising there about the characters, even just its relation to this time?
yeah. I mean, on its own, it's funnier than I thought, and I thought it was pretty funny. So it continues to be funnier for me. The power of the chorus. It has this Greek chorus of firefighters who are like guardians of the town, and they function like a Greek chorus in the play. The difficulty of that aspect of the play is surprising to me. How much kind of visceral power it requires, and how much clarity it requires, and how from a directorial standpoint, just how it relates to the piece and how it functions is it's a major element for the entirety of the play, how the play lands. So that's been exciting for me to chew into, and to have this really cool group of actors um, kind of taking it on. That's that's really fun watching them like chew on it. um, yeah, but being with the play and seeing this text open up has been really exciting. I'm not a good reader of plays. That's not my strength. I come largely. I have a background in working with scripts, but my professional career is in creating new works, and like
Mhm.
I'm not a close reader of scripts. That's not my skill set in that same way. So having this opportunity to like watch it unfold in time as we play with it has been so illuminating about it. It's such a cool script. It's so tight. There's nothing wasted. And to say to myself beforehand, and to others, like, oh, this is such a good play for this time. Here's why. But then to start to play with it and see how many elements, in fact, are such really clear allegories. I mean, yeah, complacency and neutrality are definitely like these themes. But for example, another major theme of the piece is this. It's like a appeasement in a way. There's like it's overall, yeah. The protagonist doesn't do anything to stop these arsonists, and it lets them kind of infect his home. But if we look more closely at the dynamics of how each moment plays out, like there's so many times when, in fact, he's appeasing them, and often preemptively. And we see that right now.
Right.
Hopefully, we're seeing that a little less now. But in the last year, um, we've watched, or we've been a part of, institutional appeasement and individual appeasement, and this idea that is in the play. This idea ultimately that once we realize that in fact they're arsonists, well, what we should do is try to make them our friends, because if they're our friends, then maybe although they will be burning down the town, and there's nothing we can do about that, maybe they won't be burning down our house in particular.
Oof. Yeah.
Which of course is a failed strategy. It enables the destruction of the entire town, and your house will go with it. And in the play, they say we're arsonists. They say there's a one line in the play is the Biederman, the protagonist, is saying they're asking him to help measure out this detonator cable in the attic, which is full of gasoline. And he's saying, y'all, your sense of humor is pretty odd. You won't necessarily. I mean, I could see why you land in jail now and then because I can imagine that most people don't have as evolved a sense of humor as I do about this. He, refuses to accept that it's not a joke. And the arsonist says to him, "Well, we're working on our jokes because comedy is the third best tool. The second best is sentimentality, which is all the stuff that the other arsonist does, lays on about how hard his life has been, why he has reasons. And that's the analogy too, like why he has reasons for the things that he does, why we have to treat him kind of with this certain deference. But the first and most effective tool is always the truth, because funnily enough, nobody believes it. And of course, we saw this. We saw this for years coming up to the election. Oh, here's a document. This is exactly what we want to do. Well, they don't really mean. They're not. That's not. That's more of an ideological trapping. It's a costume that they wear, or they're not going to be effective enough to implement it. Oh, look. Well, here's chapter one. Oh, look, chapter two. Oh, chapter three. So that's a I don't want to say that part has been fun about working with the play, but it has been illuminating.
Definitely. I mean, sometimes the joy of directing is getting to see the characters and seeing different things as character studies, but also being able to relate this back, I mean, I'm sure is painful in many ways. But also,
Yeah, yeah.
it's, I don't know, it's showing the cause and the reason we need this play on stage now more than ever.
But you're right too. The characters and the play between them is so delicious and so much fun. The actors are doing such good work with it, and it's so fun to play with it. These tight little comic bits, almost vaudevillian aspects to some of the comic play, and
Yeah, can we talk a little bit more about that actually? Because Durin Mott had called this a learning play without a lesson. And I remember I encountered this piece when I was doing my MFA, but like realism, satire, direct address. But I was just curious, like how you're handling the tone and the style and the comedy. But so you're mentioning vaudevillian. Can you talk to us just more about how you're playing with, yeah, with style and with the comedy?
yeah. To me, the style of the play, the form, is unique to itself, like just within the script. But it has its roots in Brecht, as well as Greek tragedy, if we give it that. But that Brechtian quality. I hear it also in terms of the comedy through the lens of of vaudeville. Not all of it, some of it in the rhythms. That might be like some of that might be like my own kind of permanent comic lenses and how I hear like how I when I read a play or work with material that's on its feet, like I can hear those drivers and I'm drawn to those drivers to bring out the movement of the comedy. But like in terms of this vaudeville, like in terms of scale and rhythm, in commedia, really, like a vaudeville commedia line is a direct, not repetition, but a development in that way. And so those elements for me are coming out in this work because it's non-realistic, scale forward, like scale raised, larger comedy. Which when those dynamics are present in comedy, then to me it's like you go to commedia and vaudeville to find out how to make them fly and pop. If you're in the West and you're in Western comic forms, that's where the roots of those things will lead you to, and something that can be articulated on stage, that makes sense to us. But to me, like I don't hear a realism in it. There are parts that play more realistically, but it's housed in something larger, and that's a unified style, even though it does these things that are, as you say, like coming out of audience address. Suddenly there's a chorus, there's a unrealistic elements in design and things like that. And to me, those are all unified in this in the form of the play that I feel like is in the script.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, it gives us something to really look for with the actors too, because I think what I love about this conversation is it feels like it's teasing out particular aspects of the piece while still giving us so much to really look for as we come and sit into the in the house as the audience. So a question I have, and I some directors dislike this question a lot, and I understand that. But when audiences come to see the show and then they walk out, what are conversations or questions or things that you're hoping they begin to discuss? And of course, I never ask this in a didactic way. I don't think that you're prescribing a question or a conversation. But I'm curious, like what that looks like in your mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I think that the experience of the audience is the whole point of what we're doing. Audiences who come to see this play will have like a really fun experience. That's that's one element of it, and they're gonna be talking about that. Oh, the way these characters were together. Oh, how that thing happened. Like that person was so funny. The way that that's going to be a driver. But the themes of the play are unavoidable. It's very so as you said, it's like it's a It's a morality play, and but it's not clear that it's, somebody said to me the other day, like, what is the play saying about, like, why doesn't Biederman stop them? And I'm like, I don't think that the play is about why he doesn't. I think the play is about the fact that he doesn't, and how we deal with that fact. Um, Hopefully, the play can encourage some closing of the distance between ideas and action. That's what I would. I mean, if I could choose, if I could choose, it would be that. I think that's the point of the play.
I love that and very succinct. So that's, yeah, what a way for us to end our conversation right now. Thank you so much, Matt. This has been wonderful. I so look forward to seeing this, and I know everyone listening feels the same way. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marina. I appreciate it. I love these questions, and it's really an honor that you take this time to highlight the plays in this way.
Oh, thank you.